Well, Chip, how you doing? I know this is the graveyard shift, and you've been here all day, so I won't keep you hanging around too long. It's funny, but when I'm usually on level 5, I'm here in a very, very different capacity. Martin Dunne, who I think is sitting on the back there somewhere, has generally been sociable with me. So it's great to be here and actually, I suppose, be able to realise what's actually going on around here. When I met with Peter and Pat in relation to today, I suppose the brief I was given was to talk about my journey through sport and I suppose my transition from athlete into my second life. Kind of makes it quite interesting when I've just come back from the team holiday with the Dublin football team, and sitting in Orlando writing out a speech for today was quite good. It was great to kind of reflect over some old memories. I started boxing when I was 5 years of age. I had my first fight when I was 6, and you don't start boxing properly until you're 11 years of age. So by the time I got to 11, and other kids were already starting to box, sure I was beating up children for fun at that stage. So it was, and I was quite enjoying it. I was quite fortunate in the fact that growing up in Neilstown, and Neilstown at the time was a rough enough area, and it possibly had a bad reputation. But my dad was a former Olympian. He boxed in the 1976 Olympics in Montreal, and he was my coach. So what other kids were out on the road, kind of doing whatever they were doing after school, or even before school, I was training in the house. So from the age of 14, 15, I trained before school every day. I failed one subject in school, which was the Irish language, which is funny enough is the one thing that I'm quite passionate about. But I didn't fail it because the teacher was quite poor at teaching the language. I failed it because I trained every day before I went to school. So when I got into class, I was either quite tired or half asleep at the desk. Boxing for me was my life. I loved it. And I suppose that's a piece that I will touch on throughout the chat today about how sometimes as sports people, we can just get so involved and wrapped up in our sport that we tend to forget about ourselves, that we tend to forget about the person behind the athlete. I know from my own experience that transition from sport into my second life was quite difficult. As I said, I had my first proper fight when I was 11 years of age, and I went through the whole amateur system, having never lost a contest in this country. Got to the age of 20, tried to qualify for the Olympic Games and just missed out. Travelled over to Sydney, had a bit of a bad experience out there. I was the first reserve going out, so our plan was going out to get in the ring with somebody in our weight division. And what we'll do is we'll try and cause as much or inflict as much pain on them as we possibly could and cause an injury, and I'll get their place. I ended up getting 15 stitches above my left eye and breaking my right hand, so that didn't work out as planned. So I come back from Sydney and kind of was at a crossroads in my life. I was 20 years of age, and I was thinking about what's next. I went to college for a year. I went to Trinity College, and I was studying human anatomy. I was going to go on and study sports science. And then I got an offer of a contract to go professional. I signed my first deal in America with Sugar Ray Leonard, and was trained by the great Freddie Roach. So I had two of the biggest names in world boxing behind me. And it was great for me, for the kid who was non-American, non-Olympian, and was nothing but skin and bone when I went out there. To get that sort of profile lift was huge for me, and 12 of my 14 fights in the States were nationally televised on HBO, Showtime, and ESPN. And it was a great opportunity for me to really develop my skill, develop my craft, and just my complete focus again was solely on boxing. Nothing else mattered. I trained in the morning, I trained in the evening, and in between all I did was rest and eat. My sole intention was to become a world champion. After 14 fights, we were at a stage where we either become American and we take a green card, or we go home and try to start a life back at home. I'm quite passionate about my country and quite passionate about Ireland as a whole in terms of culture, language, and its people. And I always saw myself as representing I suppose, what I would say is my people. And discussing this with my wife, we said we'd go home and give boxing a go back here and see could we get it to take off again. We said we'd give it 2 fights and see what happens, and thankfully after one fight we quickly realised that, yeah, we made the right decision. We couldn't print enough tickets, and the people just got behind me. I think the initial reaction was that this kid's been out with Sugar Ray Leonard, he's been out with Freddie Roach, he's been training with Manny Pacquiao, Mike Tyson, James Toney, Israel Vasquez. What is it? They hadn't seen me in 4 years. What can the kid do? And I suppose that initially turned people on, but then when they got to the shows, I suppose the entertainment factor came in. It wasn't the fact that I was just beating up people. I was susceptible to being punched occasionally myself. For those of you who have seen me fight, I don't think any fight was ever one-sided. I ended up on my backside more than once. So I was kind of entertainment. I was value for money, as they would say. After a couple of fights, we got a great opportunity to fight in the O2, the Old Point, against a guy called Ishan Pickering. And I was never one to really dislike opponents, much like you see in modern day where people slag off people. I was more about, I'll do my talking in the ring and try to outsmart my opponent and beat them. But Ishan Pickering kind of got under my skin a wee bit. He kind of belittled everything I'd kind of done up to that point in time. So I took a bit of a needle to him, and I thought, I'll teach him a lesson. And that we did. We fought him for the European belt in front of the point. And the referee's shirt started as white as your shirt, but it ended as kind of red as that top over there. I broke his nose in the first round with a left jab. And from that moment on, got kind of box moved, and won the fight. I suppose I became the greatest thing since sliced bread at that moment in time in this country, and I suppose the euphoria kind of really picked up, and TV shows and the press all loved you. Again, though, my sole focus was on just being a boxer, staying focused on where I was going. And a couple of defenses, and then a little guy called Kiko Martinez landed in this country, little Spanish guy. And my next step after Kiko was to go to Vegas. We were going to fight in Vegas. We were fighting for the world title. And that's possibly where my mind started to slip to what the step was after what was right in front of me, where I was presently. And Kiko was a renowned knockout artist. He won all his fights by knockout. And my problem was when I boxed, I liked to fight. So I think it was in me. As I said, I started boxing when I was 5, first fight when I was 6. I had 2 older brothers, and it wasn't a quiet household. So we'd been constantly at it. And I was better technically as a boxer, so moving was my game. But I loved to fight, and it was in me. Plan I was given, tactics I was given going into fight Kiko were box and move, break him down. 5th round, then we'll start to really wear him down, and we'll finish in the end. So my plan was to go out and move. Well, that's what I was told to do. I went out and within the first 10 seconds, I engaged through double jab, right hand, left hook, and went to go to war. He catch me with the right hand on top of the head. Never hurt me. But from that moment in time, my body just literally wouldn't do what I told it to do. I tell it to throw a straight jab. And then I'd throw a straight jab, and within 86 seconds, I went from being the greatest thing since sliced bread to being a waster overnight. And that's how quickly things change. People's opinions in sport, sport is great at times, but in boxing, your strengths and your weaknesses are just clearly on show for everybody to see. And that demonstrated I had a weakness in terms of I got knocked out by a person I was supposed to beat within 86 seconds. And so from being up there, I was all of a sudden down there. That was in the people's eyes, I suppose, and in the press's eyes. I was lucky enough that my mindset was I never read press, I never listened to radios, never watched TV. Anything that mentioned my name or anything that mentioned my sport, I switched off from because I didn't want any outside influences getting into me, whether it was positive or negative. Because if you believe the positive stuff, you've got to take on the negative stuff as well. So I tend to cut all that out. So it didn't really impact upon me, it impacted upon my family. But I trained the very next day after being knocked out by Kiko Martinez. I also came into Croke Park the very next day to watch Dublin play Kerry, and unfortunately Kerry battered us that day. So it was a brutal weekend all around for me. I actually tell you a funny story, because Martin Donnelly was my sponsor, and Martin had sponsored me a Jeep, and we got a taxi home from the hotel, and the mother-in-law was staying in the house, and my friends got to the house before me. They said, "Oh, Bernard's coming home in a taxi." And she's like, "Oh, why is he coming home in a taxi?" And Martin took the Jeep off him. And Martin Donnelly happened to pull up at the house just as I was pulling up, and thankfully I got in the door before him, because the mother-in-law would have cut him in two. But Martin was a great supporter of mine, and as I said, most people wrote me off after 86 seconds. Martin and my family and the people who were around me, they were the ones who stuck by me. And they were the ones who realised how much I wanted it and how much I was driven towards being successful. I trained the very next day, and we started to work our way back. Had my first fight within 8 months, a couple of comeback fights. Then I got offered a world title fight against Celestine Caballero, and I just felt I wasn't ready. I just felt the people weren't ready for me. I felt there was still an anxiety around whether I could actually achieve what I wanted to achieve, even personally. So I said no to that, which at the time most people would have said I was crazy. How many offers of world titles do you get? But I had one more fight, and then the offer came to fight Ricardo Cordoba, who was a young Panamanian who'd been boxing professionally since he was 16. This guy was skillful. He was world class, but he suited me. He was technical. Anyone who was technical, I knew I could handle. And so we agreed to the fight. And I'm sure Cordoba came here, having watched the Kiko fight, thinking, happy days. We'll have a quick night's work. And it was my job to make sure that didn't happen. We had the Grand Slam that day as well, which was incredible. And it's great that both have happened so close together. And for me, to watch the boys win and to see Ronan Garda doing what he was doing was just was great. It was a great boost for me going down to the O2 to take on Ricardo Cordoba for the world belt. Going into the arena, the place was manic, and it actually gives me hair standing on the back when I keep even thinking about it when I talk about it in talks like this. But the one thing I remember very clearly is when I come down to actually make my ring walk. So there was a big kind of corridor, and then so I'm standing behind my silhouette comes up on a big screen, and Cordoba comes down the end of the corridor. So he's standing there, and I'm about to make my walk, and he starts to speak to me, and I think it was Spanish, and I started to speak to him in English, and we're back and forth now. Neither of us can understand what each other was saying, but I think we generally got the gist of what was going on. And basically we finished on, I'll see it inside. And I remember walking down the ring, my dad was there, and we touched gloves, and then I up into the ring. Fight starts, or back and forth, first 2 rounds. I thought, we snuck those two. Third round, I've probably thrown the best punch I've ever thrown. And all you people have played sports. So when you've hit something, whether it's a ball, or whatever sport you play, when you've hit something, you just know it's going where you want it to go. I rolled, and I come up and boom, left hook. And as the punch landed, before he even started to move, I thought, that's it. It's over. I'm champion of the world. And he starts to fall, boom, he hits the floor, and I jump around, and I'm celebrating, and we've done it. We've become champion of the world. And I turn around, and the referee's on 6, and Cordoba sits up and stands up, and he got himself back up. And I just couldn't believe it, because I had nailed him as clean as I've ever thrown a punch. And he got back off him, and I thought, what have I got to do here? And bell goes, 4th round, we clash heads, and he splits me and I have double vision for the rest of the fight. And the 5th round, so most people always remember the 11th when I do knock him out. But the 5th round for me is the one that I suppose defines me as who I am. It's the piece that I remember from watching it, obviously, not from live, because not too much I remember about being punched in the face. With Cordoba, he just caught me so clean with a right hook. First one, and I got up, and I was okay. Looked to my corner, I said, I'm done, I'm all right. Second one, we're engaging. And again, I go to throw a left hook, but he beats me to it. And I'm down and I'm on the floor. And I'm not really sure where I am. And I look up and I see my mammy wasn't looking at me, and I thought, Jesus, what's wrong with me, ma? It was only then I realised where I was, that I was on the floor. And I said, whoa, you're on the floor here. And there I had a whole out-of-body experience where I actually started to speak to myself about, if you don't get up here, your career's over. People are going to say, well done, but hard luck. And it's like, is that what you want to hear? Is that why you've made all the choices that you've made in your life? Why you've dedicated yourself to this sport? Is that what you want to hear? Is that you're done? Now, this all happens in possibly 3 seconds. And I talk about, the fact that I was on the fire brigade panel at the time. Could you imagine me trying to carry you out of a fire? So I was on the fire brigade, and I spoke about, is that what you're going to be? You're going to be a fireman. Because if you don't get up, you're finished. So all this is happening while the referee is counting. And all of a sudden I hear the voice, get up. Get effing up on your feet, get up. And it's Harry in my corner screaming at me. And I got up, and Cordova comes after me, and he's swinging, and I'm blocking. There's about 20 seconds left. And the bell rings, and I throw my first punch, and I miss Cordova, and I hit the ref. And I tapped him on the ass as I went past him. I said, whoa, I said, got you there, Earl. His name was Earl, the ref. And as I went back to the corner and sat down, Harry said he couldn't believe how clear I was in my eyes. And I was back. I was focused. Because he thought it was over. He thought I was finished. But we were back, and best noise I've ever heard, apart from walking into Croke Park, was when I stood up at the start of the 6th and I put my hand up. And I just think it was disbelief from the crowd. And I could see it in Cordova. I just think it was disbelief that I was coming back. And that gave me such a lift. My own people, just the noise they made when I came out into that ring. We engage and we're back and forth, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, he has his best round. He's thrown the most punches he's thrown in the whole fight. 11, though, I said, okay, we got to push him back now. He obviously thinks he's losing the fight because they came out and they were so aggressive. So we engage, and I catch him again, left hook, and he starts to stumble. I chase him. I hit him a couple of shots. Down he goes. I didn't celebrate as much this time for obvious reasons. And then he comes out, and as he comes out, I step back. I hit him another left hook. At that stage, I start to think to myself, okay, we won this round, that round, this round. We're going to win this round by at least 3 points. All you've got to do is stay on your feet now, and you're champion of the world. That's all you've got to do. Now, my corner were obviously thinking differently because they were screaming at me to jump on him, and I was thinking, no, stuff that. Stay away from him, box, move, and just get through the fight. Thankfully, I with 1 second to go, I jumped on him and caught him in a left hook because I was actually losing on all 3 judges' scorecards at that point in time. Now, they would have been lynched trying to get out of the place if I'd have lost the fight. But I was actually losing on all 3 judges' scorecards. So it just goes to show that you need to stay focused on your tactics and on your plan. Because I was changing it just because I seen something. I seen a space. I said, okay, we've won here. Just stay away. Where you just need to keep going at it. And thankfully I did. And with 1 second to go, that left hook landed again. And from the age of 5 and 6 years of age, when I sat in Barry McGuigan's knee and told him, I'm going to be like you, at 29 years of age, we'd achieved a dream. From 2 years earlier, being told we were a waster and washed up and we were finished, to now sitting at the top of the world. It just shows you that you should never let outside influences actually change how you think about what you want to be. Because it would have been so easy for me to quit at that stage because I'd been European champion. I'd made a few quid. My profile was quite big. It would have been easy for me to say, you know what, I've had enough. But I still wanted it. I was driven to try to be the best. I believed I could be, but I think that day gave me the opportunity to achieve it. It's funny, after that, kind of things changed for me because when you've chased something all your life and you've got it, you start to think about, well, what's next? And I think I started to question myself around what was next. And I was having some issues kind of business-wise with boxing in terms of dealing with certain issues. And I said, you know what, I don't need the hassle. And I went into a fight against a guy from Thailand, Poonswat. And to this point in time, I'd never been hurt in boxing. Never. And it's great to be able to say that, having boxed for 25 years. I was never hurt up until this point. No, I broke my nose twice, but never broke it in boxing. I walked into a set of weights one day and broke my nose. And then messing, jumped the bench, fell, and hit my face on the floor and broke my nose. So yeah, I wasn't the brightest of kids. But Poonswat came, and he came with another reputation much like Kiko. But I thought I'd learn my lesson, and I did learn a lesson from Kiko. First 2 rounds against Poonswat, the plan was nearly the same in terms of going into fight Kiko as it was to Poonswat. Boxing for 6 rounds and move. And I did that for 2, won them on all 3 judges' scorecards. But I knew myself I couldn't do what I was doing for 12 rounds. So consciously I made a decision, okay, I'm going to engage this guy now, and I should try and hit him and hurt him, and let him know that, you know, you keep coming forward, this is what you're going to get. So I set a turn on a right hook and hit him. You know, you've done something like that, and you've hit someone, and they creak their neck and smile at you and walk forward. It's kind of, you kind of know what's coming next. And yeah, it's quite disheartening. Wasn't a funny matter at the time, I'll be honest. But then he started to walk me down, and when he hit me, I saw flashes of light. Boom! I was like, geez, what was that? Every time he hit me, I saw flashes of light. Like he was hitting me body shots, and you were just wincing from them. And at the end of that round, the fight was over. And at the end of that round, I kind of knew my career was over. In terms of, I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want to push myself the way I was anymore. And the hunger wasn't there to be a champion. And I knew that if I stuck at the sport, I'd end up getting beat by somebody who shouldn't beat me. And I'd end up getting hurt. I'd end up cutting corners. And up to that point in time, I never cut corners. So I announced my retirement shortly after. And that's when the transition into everyday life started to happen. And it was great for kind of 2 or 3 months, you know, where you're able to eat what you want, drink what you like. I mean, I used to weigh 8 stone 10 pounds. So to be able to go out and kind of eat and drink whatever I wanted was great for about 2 months. And then you start to think about, well, what is next? Well, where do I go from here? And that's when I kind of started to kind of get in on myself and think, what else can you do? What other values do you have? And I thought I had none. And it really started to worry me about what my future was going to be. Well, what's next? Where do I go? And I said I do have great friends, but I suppose I never really spoke to them about it. And I kept it to myself, and it wasn't a nice time in my life. And I remember about 6 months into it, and I was pissed off at things, to be honest. And I remember watching a fight in my room. It was a European title fight in my weight division. I was having a cup of tea, and I was watching it. I was thinking, geez, how bad that boy is. You know, like in 2 fights I could be European champion. In 3 fights I could be fighting for the European world title again. So I called my wife in. I said, Pamela, I said, come here. I said, so watching this, told her the story. I said, you know, I'm not sure I made the right decision. I said, and I think I need to do something different. I think I need to go back. You know, what do you think? We both decided at that moment that she was right and that I didn't need to go back boxing. Yeah, so I'm looking back now, it was the right decision. But at the time, it was hard to take. It really was, you know. But the one thing it taught me was that, okay, we need to look at what are we going to do, because I couldn't sit in the position that I was in. Now, when I spoke to, I suppose, the one person that I always speak to around things is my dad. My dad left school when he was 11, but he'd be, I suppose, my closest confidant and somebody who I would speak to around everything that I do. And I said to him, look, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what's next. And he just gave me one piece of advice. Well, what have you tried? And it was funny because I hadn't tried anything. He said, well, go out and try something. He said, when you try something, I said, you'll find something out about it. One, you like it and want to do it. Or he said, the worst thing you'll find out is you don't like it and you don't want to do it. So I started to try things, and I went and learned the Irish language. I've written 2 books. I've written a TV show now. I've gone back through college. So I've done a master's in performance psychology. I've done 2 HDips in strategic management and executive coaching. I've been involved with the Dublin senior football team for the last 6 years. And I'm now the high performance director of our most successful Olympic sport, boxing. I wish I'd start preparing for that, though, that transition in sport. And the one thing I do now in my role as high performance director is I start my athletes thinking about what their second life is going to be as soon as they come into my unit. So it's managing, it's helping them to manage that transition, helping them to start thinking about it, even just from a lifestyle point of view. Even mental wellness, making sure that they understand that this doesn't happen forever. I've seen some athletes in here, and it's about understanding that you need to take that opportunity when you have it. Enjoy it. But it shouldn't be your sole focus. You need to balance it out with other aspects in life. So whether that's through education, whether that's through work experience, whether that's through just learning basic skills. As an elite athlete, everything tends to be done for you. So you don't cook for yourself, you don't clean. The only thing you need to do is show up with a pair of boots or a pair of boxing or your gum shield. Not everything else is done. There's no accountability here. There's no awareness of what else you should be doing. It stops growth, in my opinion. We need to create accountability for all our athletes, and that's what we do in our unit, around looking after our own training program, understanding where you need to be, when you need to be there. We're not going to call you. We'll send you the details, and you follow it in. We have athletes in now next week, from Tuesday and Wednesday, all in for assessment. So they were given a training program over the last 4 weeks that they were given to do at home by themselves. They're given lifestyle education. They're given performance psych. We try to help them develop as people behind the scenes. And if we can be successful in getting boxing is, I suppose, a different demographic really to GAA. Boxing's really predominantly from a working class, rough enough background. You tend to not get too many people from, I suppose, affluent areas who will go into it. So we need to encourage them. So what I try to do is encourage these kids to get an education, to start thinking about, well, what's next. Because it's really, really important. Because I know how difficult that transition can be. And if you don't give them that opportunity because it helps with your sport. That distraction, that education, that knowing that you're invested in them as people, as individuals, not just as athletes, but as people and individuals. When they realize that that there's a necessity for them to start thinking about this, when they realize that you're interested in helping them not just become a All-Ireland champion or a club champion or whatever it is or sport you're in, you'll get more buy-in from them. And so that's one of the part of the things that we've done since I've come into the program over the last 18 months. There's a couple of structural things that we've looked at within the system. But from an athlete point of view, that's the one thing that I suppose that I take most pride in and I pay a lot of attention to, is that athlete and person development. Because we don't think about our second lives. I didn't think about my second life. Now, I've been very fortunate to get to where I've got to. But many people does that happen to? And many people don't come out of that 6-month phase of darkness, of, well, what's next? What value do I have? And that's one of the things I actually love about the GAA, is that we encourage our athletes to go into college. There is a network there to help each other. We're building that in boxing, and we're trying to, make connections with other businesses and give our guys opportunities to go in and get experience, whether it's in IT, whether it's in cooking, simple things. Give them that opportunity to grow as people. I suppose that's, apart from winning Olympic medals, it's about giving my athletes an opportunity to have a second life. Guys, I think that's me. I see a big red sign flashing in front of me, get off stage. I want to thank you for having me. I hope you've had a good day. Safe travels back home to everybody who's going outside of Dublin.